Two quick editorial comments. First of all, I'm Representative Benninghoff. I'm out of the State College Bellefonte area. I want to thank Penn State University and this specific campus for hosting us here, and I want to thank Representative Bobeck for her leadership in asking us to come to your area and your community. I do want to remind people to please turn your cell phones off. If you have them, put them on mute. We are being videotaped, and our members will have the opportunity that are not here today to be able to view this and be able to learn subsequently. And last, there may be some additional members coming. I apologize that there's sometimes commotion, members having to come and go, but some of us are actually trying to attend 2 or 3 different hearings today. So please bear with that, and that is not an insult to your testimony. Last but not least, we're going to have your panel testify, and then the members will ask questions, and it's painless. We're here to learn from you. The goal of these hearings as we trek across Pennsylvania is trying to strengthen the working middle class and trying to learn specifically from different types of industries, whether it's education, the building industries, different career paths, as well as chambers of commerce's, Ben Franklin organizations, about what Pennsylvania may be doing well and what we could be doing better. We know that government is part of that equation, but we also know government can sometimes be an impediment if we aren't paying attention to some of the things that you see on the front line on a day-to-day basis. And so our goal is to learn from you, go back to our colleagues. If there's a legislative change that needs done, so be it. If there's regulatory things that we need to look at, so be it. So I think the members will have some good questions, and we're excited about your testimony. Without further ado, I am going to turn the microphone over to Representative Bobeck for a welcome, and then we'll proceed with our first panel.
Thank you, Chairman Benninghoff. I welcome everyone. I'm so grateful for your attendance today. I like to call this bringing Harrisburg home. Harrisburg is listening, and today it's in my part of the district. This district that I represent is parts of Luzerne and Lackawanna and all of Wyoming County. However, many of my colleagues today, and I thank them for attending, they will identify themselves. They're from other parts of the state. But we're all here for one reason: jobs, jobs, and more jobs. We all know that that's the essence, the lifeblood of any state throughout the nation. We need to create good-paying jobs, and we're looking at it from every economic aspect. That's why I'm grateful for the chambers of commerce that are here with us today, and of course those who teach, the presidents of the colleges and universities in the area. So thank you so much. And with that, I would like to turn the mic over to my far right, Representative Stephen Bloom. So if everyone would please introduce themselves and tell the audience the district that you represent.
Thank you, Karen. I'm Stephen Bloom, state representative from the 199th district, which is in Cumberland County and includes the Carlisle area.
Good afternoon. I'm Representative Marcia Hahn from the 138th district, Northampton County.
Hello, welcome to the Northeast. Everybody who's not from here, Aaron Coffer, I think most of you know me, neighboring district here in Luzerne County, 120th district.
Hello everyone, State Representative Tara Toohill, Southern Luzerne County, 116th.
And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jonathan Fritz, proudly representing the 111th district, comprised of Susquehanna and Wayne County, and also mention a proud Penn Stater. Feeling right at home. Thank you for having.
Thank you very much. We will begin with our first panel. I'd like to introduce Lindsay Grady. She is with the Greater Scranton Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much for being here. Bill Leandri. Well, I might make sure I get your name correct. Back Mountain Chamber of Commerce. And Gina Sudami? Sudam. Well, I knew I'd screw one of them up. I apologize. With a name like mine, I do my best. She is with the Wyoming County Chamber of Commerce. I don't know what order you want to go to, but if I was the gentleman, I would deviate to the women, because my mother always said women first. So, on that, and each of you go ahead and just flow to the next person, then we'll take questions afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. I'm Lindsay Grady. I'm the Director of Workforce Development with the Greater Scranton Chamber of Commerce. We really are a multifaceted organization located in downtown Scranton, and we touch almost every aspect of our community. Our mission is really attracting, growing, and sustaining businesses that reside within our communities, and that directs all of our initiatives that we put in place. In addition to our traditional chamber services, you think about networking, referrals, different types of cost-saving programs. The chamber is a parent organization, an umbrella organization to a number of affiliates. And those affiliates support economic development, provide small business lending services, they facilitate leadership development, and also our workforce development initiatives. Collectively, they all play a role in our organization's overall mission, and that's to create opportunities for the region. Our business owners, we assist them and the executives to address the issues that they face every single day. And attracting, sustaining, and growing jobs in northeastern Pennsylvania is our #1 priority. So since 1981, the economic development affiliate of the Chamber, the Scranton-Lackawanna Industrial Building Company and the Scranton Plan, they've developed more than 1.3 square million feet of business space. We've completed 9 build-to-suit projects. We've developed business parks that total over 3,000 acres. And they've accomplished this by, we've aggressively marketed northeastern Pennsylvania to facilitate this growth and the expansion of our existing businesses, leading industrial development construction projects and participating in regional economic development initiatives. We really work hard to have a lot of energy, and we go where the energy is. In 2016 alone, SLIBCO and the Scranton Plan completed 22 projects. We created and retained 2,031 jobs, and we facilitated $1.25 billion in community investment. We completed 400 marketing outreach meetings, one-on-one meetings with potential business prospects for our area to relocate to northeastern Pennsylvania, and we conducted 300 corporate tours as we showed them places to grow and build their business here in northeastern Pennsylvania. As the landscape of our region's economy has changed, so have the needs of the businesses that we assist. While they're exploring northeastern Pennsylvania as a location of choice, they look at infrastructure, incentives, our geographic location, and that still plays a role in their decision to relocate or expand here in the region. But workforce has really moved to the forefront of the conversation that we have with them. They need access to pipelines of talent that have the right skill set. They need a plentiful labor supply, and they need forward-thinking training opportunities. That's what's been leading our dialogue with them. So in an effort to proactively address these issues, the Chamber has refocused its workforce development initiatives by closely aligning them with our economic development ventures. And by dovetailing these efforts together, as well as our firm understanding of what is required to grow the regional economic base, as demonstrated by our previous successes, we've built the foundation of facing these challenges. But it's not one that we have the capacity to face ourselves. The following remarks I have specifically geared towards workforce are a few ways that we feel the Commonwealth can assist our region as we undertake these efforts. The largest and perhaps most difficult challenge that we face is sociological, such as the attachment to work or work ethic. Our society is severely lacking a set of values based on the moral virtues of hard work and diligence, which at one time was at an all-time high, is now at a historic low. The Chamber, we've implemented initiatives geared at addressing this challenge. It's a big thing to wrap your arms around. And one approach is by engaging our school districts. In Lackawanna County alone, our organization interfaces with 11 public schools, 1 career technology center, and 2 private high schools. Attachment to work, it's formed through opportunities to volunteer, job shadowing, participating in an internship, touring a local business. Those are just a few ways. While we have engaged our local partners in these efforts, there has to be a collective, well-thought-out policy by the Department of Education and Labor and Industry to make a sizable impact. Being self-aware is also critical. It's important to open new doors and deviate from past practices. Practices which previously decided what business and industry required for their sustainability and growth before even asking them the questions. We need to actively listen to our business and industry leaders. Day in and day out, these individuals, they're immersed in their business operations, and they are the experts in their industry, knowing their challenges and opportunities more intimately than anyone else. There's no cookie-cutter solution for assisting businesses, which is why we really need the flexibility to allow local organizations, ourselves and our partners that we work with, to assist our community. We know our economic landscape, which in a positive light is different and unique than any other area. By listening to business and industry leaders, allowing for flexibility for the deployment of resources and solutions at the local level, and supporting these initiatives, our businesses will grow, thereby strengthening our communities. Lastly, we strongly believe in efforts to assist underemployed individuals are crucial. While there are numerous programs and funding streams geared towards assisting unemployed individuals, there is a significant lack of assistance for those who are underemployed. The ability to assist these individuals with growing within their business and industry, moving up the career ladder, it's often overlooked. This is our middle class. They generally face the same financial and guidance needs of an unemployed individual, yet they do not qualify for the services that are available. A shift in policy and programming aimed at assisting the underemployed would allow entry-level positions to become available for those with the correlating skill sets, or provide individuals with the opportunity to develop an employable skill set. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I thank you for your time, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Gina Severcool-Sudam, and I'm the president of the Wyoming County Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for inviting me to be here today and for the opportunity to address you. When I think about strengthening the middle class as it relates to Wyoming County, I think about three primary focuses for us. One is our school district, and Wyoming County is primarily served by the Tunkhannock Area School District. But I learned recently from our superintendent that more than half of the students in our school district qualify for free or reduced lunch. I also learned that this year, in the 4 elementary schools, they've qualified for a federal program called Community Eligibility Provision, and that allows for every elementary school student, regardless of their family's personal financial income, to have free breakfast and lunch. So that's been a huge savings for the middle class families, and I thought that was a really great thing that our school district was proactive in getting that federal grant for those students. But our school is still facing some financial troubles, and so next year we will consolidate those elementary schools. 3 of the outlying elementary schools will become 1. But through that consolidation, of course, many are unhappy, but our current superintendent has taken the opportunity to really shift the curriculum, as well as shifting the school district and consolidating. She's really focused on career pathways, and I think that this is part of the way we're going to help strengthen our middle class, is by teaching our students at a very early age what a career really means. Lindsay had addressed the fact that our people don't know how to work. They don't have the same work ethic that we used to. So if we can take on from a very early age in kindergarten and get students interested in careers, I think that will help them with that work ethic as they get older. So I was very excited about that. And last year, our chamber developed a Leadership Wyoming program, very similar to Leadership Wilkes-Barre and Leadership Lackawanna. And this year's project for that class is to help the school district create a career fair for grades 7 through 12. The class just met with our superintendent, and what they hope to develop is a template that can be used within the school district of a very hands-on career fair. And not just the typical career fair where you walk up to the table and you see XYZ company, and here's some things that you can take from the table, and you walk away and you have no idea what they do. This is going to be very hands-on, but it's also going to talk about the career path you can take within that company. So we used, for instance, we have an engineer with Borton Lawson in the class, and he said a surveyor in our company needs a 2-year surveying degree certificate, and it's a very, it's a program, it's higher education, but it's something they can do and work toward while they're still in high school. They can get that certificate, come out into the workforce, they can start there. Then if they want to pursue an engineering degree and so on, they can do that. So we want to talk to these students about the path they can take for a career within certain industries and within certain businesses. Of course, we can't talk about our growing and strengthening our middle class in Wyoming County without talking about our natural gas industry. And they've provided for Wyoming County many things for our municipalities through the impact fee. And I'd want to address that a little bit and talk about the fact that through the impact fee, our municipalities have grown. They've developed, our roads are smooth, our Tioga Street is getting paved while it's had its headaches, especially this week for me. It's getting paved, and I keep telling them, but it's progress, it's progress. So all of those things have been great for our municipalities, but I fear that that's at risk. And I fear that's at risk through implementing a severance tax. And I know I'm preaching to the choir with Representative Fritz is shaking his head, and I know that you know the ramifications of a severance tax on our community. My fear for Wyoming County is that the natural gas in Wyoming County is not as abundant as it is in Susquehanna and Bradford counties. So what's going to happen to these gas industries, like any other business, is they're going to go where they can get the most bang for their buck, if you will. They're going to leave Wyoming County. They're going to leave some of these smaller, less abundant natural resource areas and move on. So I would encourage you, again, to just, when you're setting that budget and setting up that revenue package, to really consider our rural counties and what that would do to our middle class in those rural counties if you implement a severance tax. The final thing I'm going to talk about is natural gas service. So while natural gas is being developed in Wyoming County, we don't have access to it. And that's a shock for many of you. And when I say we don't have access to it, none of our residents get to use natural gas, and the only business in Wyoming County that uses natural gas is Procter & Gamble, and that was done through their own funds. So the Chamber has worked very closely with UGI. For about the last 6 years, we've been exploring this initiative. And the last 2.5 years, it's become a little more feasible through UGI's Growth Tariff Extension Program, and then through the state's Pipeline Investment Program. If you're not familiar with that program, it's the last mile program is what it was referred to at one point. But the Chamber did apply for a $1 million pipeline investment program to bring natural gas service to Tunkhannock Borough. We applied in June of 2017, so it's been sitting until a revenue package is approved. That's what I'm told, that it will sit and wait for the CFA to meet and make the approval of our grant, we hope. But without this funding, Tunkhannock and Wyoming County will remain without natural gas service, and that will definitely hold up our progress in Wyoming County and in strengthening our workforce. So I thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to pass it off to Bill. Thank you.
Excellent presentations. I represent the Back Mountain Chamber, and we're rather young and very small compared to the other chambers. I do work closely with Scranton and Wilkes-Barre, and I talked with Gina. We're going to start working closer with her. One of the things I did, it's a young chamber, one of the things I started when I came on board was trying to network with them rather than be very parochial and try to be more global in a sense, working with them. But one of the things I just wanted to say up front is, speaking for the Chamber and our members, we like our legislators in our area. You know, we work very closely with you. You got great communications. You're always communicating with us. We've had you for speakers at luncheons, legislative events. Aaron, Karen, Lisa Baker. I even had Lou Barletta on the national level. I've had some our local officials, Tara and Salavanis and Pedri, and we love that communication that we're getting, and we love working with you on your projects. One of the things I try to do is help promote the things that you're trying to accomplish in the legislature, and we do that through communications back to our members and through our groups, and et cetera, so we could help not only in our own towns, but we could reach out to other areas of the state and link with other people that are in similar positions to get them behind what you're working on as well. So that's one thing we really like working with. I've also worked with Karen on, you talked about leadership for schools, and I worked with Karen on leadership programs at Dallas School and Lehman High School as well, and we're very happy to be doing that as well. And that's a leadership program where we're trying to get the students to think about post-graduation, what they're going to be doing after school. And they come in to give presentations. I've been one of the judges of those, and the students are terrific. They come in with a preparation as to what they think they're going to be doing after school. And that's been wonderful. So hats off to all of you. On another note, though, just talking about some things I think that could be worked on or improved. I'm a former banker, and we have a lot of banks in our chamber. We're very small. You know, as I mentioned before, we're only probably about 25% the size of Scranton. But we have a lot of banks in our Back Mountain area, and they all feel, when I talk to them, that they're overregulated. Being a bank president myself in the past, I understand that. Not only are they overregulated, but the cost of compliance is very steep. And that not only is in banking, but I find that in businesses. In addition to the Back Mountain Chamber and our members, and I talk to them daily, I'm always getting calls every day and emails from our members about things that are going on, and a lot of times it's to do with overregulation, and it's causing a problem for them. One of the most recent things, just this past week, I spoke with two members that are having a problem with, they're trying to open a new restaurant. And as you know, with the changes in the liquor laws, the cost of a liquor license went from about $20,000 a few years ago to about $100,000, and these two new restaurants feel they can no longer offer liquor. That's just one of the things that they're trying to deal with. Another thing that I find dealing with our members is the building codes and some of the other things that are required. Again, regulation, over-regulation seems to be an issue. On a broader scale, budget is an issue. You know, I talked to many people about what's going on in the state and how the budget is being put together. And I know not too long ago you passed another $600 million in taxes on consumers and businesses, and that's a steep nut for them to tackle. And most recently we had a downgrade in our Pennsylvania credit rating, higher interest, harder to get credit, and that spills into higher cost for the state and everybody in it. And that's an issue. A couple things I thought that you could work on, you know, two things that come to my mind is one, pension reform. You know, you're all aware of the problem we have in Pennsylvania. That's a big issue, and I know you've heard it so much, you're probably tired of hearing of it, but that's a big issue for Pennsylvania. And the second thing is welfare. Our welfare is the largest department in our state budget. We're one of the largest, most beneficial welfare programs in the country. We have 40% of every tax dollar goes towards welfare. And the reason I bring this up is it affects our businesses. I talked to another business yesterday having trouble hiring people, entry-level people. They're getting people come in to interview, and the people won't take the job even though they're paying well above minimum wage because they don't want to get off all the welfare. Talked to one of the applicants that come in, has several children, and the money she's getting as a non-working parent, single parent, all tax-free money is considerable. And then on top of that, she's getting housing and education and medical, even phone service. And, you know, it's well above what anyone could afford to do. You know, even middle class would have a tough time competing with that. So that's a big issue, and I'd like to see Pennsylvania work on that. I was very happy to see recently Pennsylvania passed a law on that welfare to work program, which I believe was one of Aaron's projects. And that will entice businesses to hire people that are on welfare, and therefore, you know, I also act as a business consultant for several companies. And I know the one company I'm working with, they're a multi-state utility contractor, and they have trouble hiring people. But some of these people that come in that don't want to leave the welfare system, now if they could get paid and subsidized by the state for them to go into a workforce program, they could hire these people, and as they get more experience and better at it, their salary goes up, they'd be making much more money than they would while they're on welfare, and the long-term effect of that is a decrease in welfare for the state, and I think that is a great program. And one last thing I was going to mention is that it's a federal law that anyone receiving welfare should work 20 hours a month, and I noticed that when I looked at the chart, that most counties in Pennsylvania, including ours in our region, have waivers, and they're not enforcing that. If we were enforcing that, I think these people they wouldn't be on welfare as long, and they'd be more adept to finding work, and that would help our workforce and put more people out of unemployment and in employment. So I think that's all. I didn't have a prepared presentation like Lindsay and Gina had great presentations. I just had a few points to talk about, and that's all I have to offer, and I thank you for the chance to speak with you today.
Thank you very much. Actually, all of them were very good and helpful. Just for clarification, the two pieces of the welfare reform stuff that we were able to get out of the House are actually not into law yet.
Okay.
One of them was minimized in our sister chamber, but as we do the code bills with the finalization of the budget, which I'm hoping will be next week, we hope to keep some of those in there. And you are correct, that was actually federal law under President Clinton. And I think a good idea to have people required to go to work or pursuing education and or looking for a job. And unfortunately, a lot of secretaries of the welfare departments in different states liberally interpret that and basically have a do not ask, do not tell kind of policy. And it's really not fair to the employee. I really wanted to echo something Lindsay said, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues for questions. And that is the attachment to work. I was always and I still do, I enjoy working. I started working when I was 11 years old, and I thought this country really prided itself on bringing a paycheck home to your family, being proud of that, being productive, learning something. When I interview people, it's the first question I ask them, are you here for a job or a check? Because if you just want a check, you know, go somewhere else. But I thought that was an interesting comment. I'll elaborate on that a little bit later. Questions, I will start on my right with Representative Bloom. Before we do that, I also want to recognize Dr. Dale Jones, our gracious host, and also Chancellor here. We talked a little bit earlier, and the collaborative effort I can see between education, the business community, and government here is really encouraging. I'd like to model that for more areas of the state. Congressman Bloom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to start out. My colleagues and you talked about the great working relationship, the close relationship they have with you as the chambers. And although I'm not all that familiar with the chambers in this region, I want to venture that I might have an even closer relationship with the Greater Carlisle Area Chamber of Commerce than these guys have with you, because my wife actually is the office manager. And so I literally hear about the chamber every day, every morning, every night, and in between on weekends. So. But I really appreciate what you guys do, and I appreciate hearing that you have a very positive relationship with the delegation here. That is important, and the Chamber does have a tremendous impact. The two issues I wanted to mention that you guys brought up, which are just so valuable, the discussion, Gina, about the impact fee and the damage that would be done if we impose a severance tax on top of that. I talk about that all the time. Other of my colleagues talk about it all the time, but it's so important for folks like you to say it, because sometimes I don't think the media or the general public believe us as elected officials when we say that the drilling companies will leave, the activity will leave, the jobs will go elsewhere if we impose that additional severance tax on top of the impact fee. Many people don't even believe we have an impact fee. Like they don't understand that it's a real thing. We already are charging them extra compared to other businesses. So I would encourage you to keep speaking out on that. You, as a chamber executive, have an incredibly powerful, credible voice on that we sometimes lack. So if you op-eds, interviews, anything you can do to get that message out is huge. So I just wanted to commend you on that. And then the welfare reform discussion, also so important, and especially sitting at the table here, I know Representative Coffer and Representative Toohill have really taken a lot of action on welfare reform in the House and in the House chamber since I've been a legislator. Really commend the work they've done. One piece of that, and this hits, Bill, on what you were talking about, we call it the benefits cliff. And I did some legislation that actually, again, I think everyone here probably helped me with to deal with the benefits cliff. And what that is where a person is qualified for certain welfare benefits, and if they take a job or even take a raise, it actually costs them more to take the job. And so the rational economic choice for them becomes stay on welfare, stay dependent. We actually addressed that in the area of child care subsidies, and we got that bill, again, with help from folks at this table. We got that bill to the governor, he signed it, and so we're changing that benefits cliff when it comes to child care subsidies. But there are multiple other similar situations where people have a rational reason to say no to a job, which we know is destructive for society, destructive even for them. They'll never do as well, but in the short term, it makes more sense for them to stay on benefits. So again, we can't always say that as well as someone who's out there working in the business community can. So Bill, I would commend you on that and encourage you to keep on talking about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks everybody for your testimony. Bill, I want to take you on the road with me, so let's go traveling along the state because we and I got to give credit. I know that a lot of the people up here. I want to give special credit to Representative Tobash as well, and to Representative Benninghoff. A lot of people up here have legislation for the welfare reform package that we have been talking about in Pennsylvania, and continues to be a major focus in our Commonwealth. I think a few people hit the nail on the head, and I think Lindsay even mentioned it in her testimony about the moral virtues of hard work and diligence. And I see that as being a major issue in conjunction with the benefits cliff that Steve mentioned. That bill got amended into my bill, which got signed into law on welfare reform, and glad to see that is going forward. But there's definitely the imbalance that we see, and trying to connect people to jobs. And one thing that I have been speaking about is trying to do performance-based workforce development programs, is actually driving money to programs where people are actually connecting people with jobs. And I think right now our system is somewhat broken in that regard. I think that we could be doing a lot more than what we've been seeing from our Career Link system and some other programs that we have out there that I think are well-intentioned, but are still not at the end of the day connecting people to jobs. And Bill, you hit everything I wanted to say. So, I don't know what more to say, but Bill, I think, has heard me speak on this topic at least 2 or 3 times, and I will continue to speak on it. But, with everything we're doing at the Commonwealth level, and as we look at our budget, as we look at the topic of welfare, if you can turn somebody who's now receiving benefits to somebody who has a job and is paying into the system, we are going to fix our budget in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people up here believe that. I think a lot of the people sitting around here believe that. And thank you for your advocacy on these issues, because we need to be doing a better job of getting people off the dole and into the workforce, and doing it in a way that can make people self-sufficient, sustainable employment, and sorry, I just had to do an editorial more so than a question, but I do want to thank you, because we have done a lot of hard work through this committee, through our policy committee, and I just wanted to give kudos to our chairman as well, who has been a leader on this issue as well, so thank you.
Thank you, Representative Coffer. While we may have 8 solid votes up here, the frustrating thing is that's not echoed necessarily with all of our colleagues, and it's very easy to demonize people who want to cut. Somehow cut has become a 4-letter word anymore. as though we're trying to be cruel and inhumane, but I think the business community probably needs to be dialoguing even amongst themselves about who's ultimately paying this, because at the end of the day, it is less money for libraries, less money for schools, and less money for everything else, and all we're asking is people to be a little more self-supportive, but more importantly, I like the idea of build up their own pride in the honor. I still have my first paycheck stub from when I was 16, I got working papers, and I made $89 a week in construction. But I like that because it's a reminder that it wasn't always going to be like that. But it also reminded me that, you know, if you had the will, you can work. Representative Hahn, pardon me, and then Representative Bobeck.
Thank you. I think I wanted to mention as well the work ethic. We had a policy hearing in the Lehigh Valley, so it's great to go around the state to hear that these are problems throughout the state, not just in a certain area. And they were talking, it was someone from a ski resort who can't get young people in there to put their cell phones down to sell tickets to the ski lift, and they have to keep reminding them, you know, like, you can't be on your cell phone, you can't be on your cell phone. But I always say, I think if we could legislate parenting, we would probably be much better off, because I think that work ethic comes from, it's great to start in school, but you know, parents have to start that with learn to clean your room and learn to do this and do chores, and maybe not expect to get paid when you're at home to do chores. So I always think you have to start that at home, and I just wish there was more we could do to get parents to get that work ethic moving with that. The other thing is for school, I know, probably giving away my age here, being one of the older ones, but when I was in school and you went to vote tech, that you were a techer, and that wasn't necessarily a good term back then. You know, and now I think we need to make parents realize that's a great thing. Not everybody can go to college to become a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer. We do need blue-collar trades, and they're great paying jobs. Anybody who calls a plumber and electrician knows that, you know, they earn a decent living. And I think we need to do more to, I think the students understand that. I think it's the parents who don't want to do that. And you can still go to college and get a 4-year degree, you know, go to community college, learn a trade. So I think we need to do more of that to push the trades in this area, because we had heard our area is at a 3% unemployment rate, which is great, but we lost businesses coming in because we don't have the workforce to fill those jobs. So I think that's something that we need to look at. And you know, I think I heard you say you work with the schools and the guidance counselors, and I think that's what we need to do to kind of push that along. So I thank you for that. I think it's important. So I guess I didn't have a question either. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess from my comment, a real quickie is just to thank you once again, Kerry. We have a wonderful policy chairperson. When he became our chair, that was his goal, to take us throughout the Commonwealth. And as I said before, bring Harrisburg home to our districts. And that's what we look for. And Marcia had mentioned the continuum. What do we hear? What's the constant variable? Because that's how good legislation is written. That's how good legislation comes into play in a state. So again, thank you. And so you could see why and the wherefore of us being here. I would like to mention something with the Scranton Chamber. The numbers are just so impressive with the Scranton plan. 22 projects created and retained over 2,000 jobs and facilitated $1.25 billion in community investment. Now, does the chamber go after, and you did a great job explaining the businesses that are attracted to the chamber, or vice versa, but what about something like Amazon or Google? I mean, do you go after the huge conglomerates also? And if you do, what do they come back with? Like, why aren't they coming to the region?
Okay. So we go after every business prospect. We're very aggressive in marketing our area. We receive leads through a number of resources, including the Governor's Action Team. Regionally, we participate in Penn's Northeast, but we have built and developed relationships with real estate brokers, site selectors. We attend, between our economic development team is 6 individuals. There's 22 members, employees of the chamber, but 6 on the economic and industrial development team. We attend over a dozen conferences nationwide every year. We set aggressive goals in the number of contacts that we make and network when we're at those conferences. And for us, it's all about relationships. And so we take the time to check in with those people and build those relationships, and we are continually reaching out to them to see what their needs may be so that we can propose Northeast Pennsylvania as a place of choice to them. It's very, very aggressive because we believe in the work that we do. Some of the things that we hear, there are a number of things that can be a deterrent for someone not to relocate or to expand or to locate their business in the area. And workforce can be a challenge. The number of, the availability of workforce, the size of the labor pool. And while we talked about unemployment rate, you need to look at what is the availability of those individuals and the skill set of the available individuals. So what are we doing to attract people to coming into Pennsylvania if they have left the area or they weren't here before? And we at the Chamber look at national examples where they have done that, where they've done both. They've attracted businesses and retained businesses, but they've attracted talent and retained their talent. We're very, very fortunate with the number of higher education institutions that we have here. Are we looking at where those graduates are going? We look at registered nurses. We're number 5 in the nation needing registered nurses, but how many do we produce through our higher education institutions? I was at a conference last week in State College, facilitated by DCED and Labor and Industry, and Geisinger was there, and they're looking at areas like the Philippines for nurses, even though we have so many higher education institutions and career and technical schools that are producing those individuals. So workforce is a challenge. And then there are other things that they look at. Incentives are a must. That's something you have to have because everyone has those, and we do. But there are other challenges that they may see. Rail service, we're seeing a lot of that. It's funny because we heard that coming into 2017, we weren't going to see a lot of interest from manufacturing prospects. That's probably the number 1 industry that we have, that we show the area and we tour the area to. So workforce is really the biggest challenge.
Interesting. I wonder if it's the pay scale, because we do, our institutions, every one of them, they're famous for their nursing programs, in my estimation, but the nurses go elsewhere. So I'm wondering if it's the pay scale.
And we've talked about in the Chamber and education to the public about your take-home pay, because that is not just your cost of living deducted from that, but what does your dollar get you in your actual region where you're residing, comparing those things. And I don't know how much education takes place in the high schools or at the collegiate level on what that difference is. They just see the bottom line of I graduate and this is the dollar amount that I can put in my pocket. They don't look at those additional things, cost of housing, transportation, how much time they spend each day commuting, et cetera.
Thank you very much. And before I let the mic go, I just want to put a reminder out there for Dr. Boatsman with the Women to Work program, because they have a wonderful program at Misericordia University where women with children come and become educated. And these are the same women that without that education and background, we might find on welfare rolls. So just a reminder, Doctor, if you would please discuss that when it's your turn. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Fritz, then Representative Tobash.
Chairman Benninghoff, thank you. Lindsay, you spoke to some challenges that companies cite when looking at the area, and I want to drill a little bit deeper into that. You spoke to access to rail. You spoke about workforce. Do they ever cite corporate net income tax rate or cost to comply with regulations, such as Bill perhaps had mentioned?
Not that I'm aware of, that I have information on.
Bill?
As far as the corporate income tax rate, I do hear about that, yes.
Okay.
That's somewhat of an issue for businesses considering coming to Pennsylvania. And those already here, they have to deal with it, but they're not happy with it.
Which is 9.99%. It's the second
Yes.
highest in the nation, and very much a disincentive.
And it puts them at a competitive disadvantage with their, when they're dealing with others that are from other states, yes.
Okay. And Gina?
Yeah, I think it's the same. I mean, I hear it more from, of course, the natural gas industry, is that they're paying the corporate income tax.
Speak into the mic, Gina.
There we go.
I hear it from the natural gas industry that they're they're paying already a very, very high corporate rate, and the impact fee, which they're happy paying with, of the impact fee, and that's going back to those areas again that are heavily impacted or involved in natural gas development. But the corporate rate for new business in Pennsylvania is a very tough pill to swallow. And while we don't, right now in our chamber, while we aren't aggressively out there attracting new business, it's something that we do know is a problem, and it does prevent them from choosing, if they're going to choose here or other areas, it makes sense.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, am I allowed to ask another question?
As a rookie, you get 2.
All right, great. You spoke to lack of access to natural gas. Even though you produce it, it's not available on a widespread basis. Along those same lines, that same theme, can you speak to access to business class broadband and how it affects you in a rural area? Bill, you may also be able to provide some input. Lindsay, perhaps not as much of an issue in your area, but if you could provide some of that input, please.
So I am a part of the Northern Tier PrEP group, the Partners for Regional Economic Excellence something. I forget what the acronym stands for. I'm sure you're all aware. And that is a very hot topic with that group, as well as our Economic Development Authority, our Regional Economic Development group. We have been discussing how we can get faster, more high-speed services. Our businesses really need that. I hear daily from our companies that say, I can't get on today, so I'll have to send you that tomorrow. I think it's more of an issue in Bradford and Susquehanna counties. We're kind of fortunate in Wyoming County. We do have Blue Ridge Cable, which is able to connect a little bit higher, I think, than some of the others that have caused an issue in Susquehanna and Bradford County. But it's definitely a problem when we're trying to attract large businesses that need a lot of bandwidth to our area, as you know.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Benninghoff, thank you for bringing your policy committee roadshow right here to Penn State, Wilkes-Barre, and I appreciate the testimony. As I sat down when Ms. Grady was testifying, I jotted down a couple of things that we talk an awful lot about, and then as we moved along the line, I thought, wow, as Representative Bloom said, keep up your advocacy. We appreciate you preaching, and probably right here you're preaching to the choir. The 3 things that I wrote down were lower our welfare cushion. It's something that we absolutely have to do, right? So we're allowing people to stay on the sofa while we've got job creators that are trying to fill positions, and there's people sitting on the sideline. We hear you loud and clear, and we're working on that. Number 2, connect job creation with our education system. So 40% of our state budget goes to welfare programs, the other 40% towards education. That's a big chunk of the pie, and there's 2 things that we could really facilitate change if we focus on. And it's mission. Those are missions that our caucus has, and we are working hard on them, and I would submit that we can do a lot better in those areas. I'm gratified to be the majority chairman of the subcommittee on vocational training and career readiness, and it's exactly where we need to focus a lot of our effort, because we have really got a skills gap that exists, and we can't go to any employer, as I'm sure you know and you continue to talk about, that is not looking for more skilled tradesmen and other skills to fill positions that they're trying to fill right now. So we can really grow our economy by filling in, just as you had mentioned. And then, Bill, you talk about our regulatory climate, and one that really supports job creation. And I think it is, if we stick with those 3 themes, the welfare cushion, connecting education, and regulation, I think we can grow our economy really at a rapid pace. So We appreciate your advocacy as a chamber. I can tell you that Representative Coffer has been a leader on welfare reform, and a number of members, including our policy chairman, has really taken that torch and carried it forward. Representative Toohill and Representative Bloom also have bills. We've got a bill that just exactly what you're talking about. We've got 40 counties within the state that have applied and gotten waivers for our food stamp SNAP program, and I've got a bill right now that would no longer allow us to do that. So those are the type of things I think that we need to do. So enough grandstanding. I just want to ask you a little bit of a question, because there could be a vote coming up very shortly on natural gas and a severance tax. And I hear you that you're happy, and you I think you actually said that the industry is happy to pay the impact fee. Well, happy, maybe, I'm not sure anyone wants to pay additional fees or taxes, but you pointed out the fact that it is improving your local area as far as roads and infrastructure goes. And this just is a question. And can some of that money be used for the impact fee to build out the infrastructure for delivery that you're looking for? And has that been thought of in your region?
So we actually have used some of the impact fee. We needed an engineering study that would cost $110,000 to get the engineering done to figure out the exact whereabouts that the infrastructure would go for the pipeline. So our county commissioners offered up $110,000 to pay for that engineering study. Our county commissioners will also offer up to fill the gap. We're not talking about a little project here, and I have some numbers in front of me, which is what I'm digging for. So if you'd bear with me for 1 second, I'm going to, well, I thought I was going to pull that out. We're talking about a $2.8 million project, and that's through some private investment with UGI's Get Gas program, which will pay for 1.4 million of it. Right now we have a local investment of the $110,000 through impact fee through our county commissioners. The pipeline investment program grant, which we're hoping to receive, the $1 million, and then another $325,000, which again we're hoping that the county commissioners will assist in that and spend some of the impact fee funding for that.
So here's what I like to hear. I like to hear that you're using some of that impact fee as an investment to try and help propagate the industry, which I think that we really need to be mindful of. So that begs the question, I guess, when we talk about this severance tax that is being proposed in many different forms. If there was an opportunity for some easing on regulatory requirements, I had a gas company come to me the other day and said, Mike, it's 543 days before we got a permit issued. 543 days. There's no certainty that an industry like that is looking for to help grow in the Commonwealth. Do you think an opportunity for easing regulatory requirements coupled with some additional fee might be feasible in your neck of the woods?
I think so. I think that we've waited a long time for some infrastructure like the Atlantic Sunrise and some of the other major infrastructure programs. And I think that if we can ease up that regulation and get the infrastructure that we need, I think that's not only going to go a long way for the natural gas industry in our counties, but the industry and the revenue for all of Pennsylvania. Because think about what happens when we can turn this taps up all the way and get the gas out of Pennsylvania and move it forward.
For sure, yeah.
To the areas that need it.
So I'll just close, Mr. Chairman, with just a last comment. Bill talked about pension reform in the state of Pennsylvania. We did really pass a piece of pension reform that has every new state employee within the Commonwealth will have some form of defined contribution 401k type plan with an opportunity to go straight 401k. We've worked on it for many years and we got across the finish line. We were happy for the work that we did, and we think it's going to stabilize the pension system that we've got so far behind on in this state. So thanks for pointing it out, and we had been working hard on it. We got something accomplished.
Thank you, Representative Tobash, and especially for responding to that, because I didn't do it half as elegantly, and because you led on that issue, you did very well. Real quickly, before I turn over to Representative Toohill, something Mike was talking about. You know, for us as Republicans to go to the governor's office, Secretary of DEP, Secretary of Labor, they just think we're a bunch of whining Republicans, or we're trying to cause counterbalance, or we're trying to embarrass the governor's office. But as chambers, which are not necessarily looking at to be partisan or particularly partisan, you have a golden opportunity when these people come into your communities, whether you want to write letters to them. I think they need to hear from the front line. And I'm not necessarily pushing you one way or another on an issue, but I had done a finance hearing years ago when I was finance chairman, and we were up above Williamsport, and same type of thing. In a small township, I think they had 8 or 9 miles of roadway, and then severance tax was being debated. Then it was actually pre-impact fee, and they said, whatever you do, these companies have come in and become very good neighbors with us. They are rebuilding our roads, rebuilding our shoulders, to the point that under our formula of the liquid fuels money, it would take us 1,800 plus years to pave and improve what they've done in the 2 years in their presence, because we just don't have that money. We don't get that kind of return on our liquid fuels dollars. That, to me, was far more impactful than just hearing another elected official say that. So do not underestimate the impact you have when you leave here, when you have the opportunities, and some of these secretarial people will come in your communities to share what you're seeing hands-on. They're going to believe you faster than they're going to believe us. And we'll deliver a message collectively, but I don't want you to underestimate that. And for our cleaner up batter, Representative Toohill, very bright young lady.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Just on what the chairman was speaking about, I think we only really look at issues like that when we start to try to compete as a state and say, oh, well, we would like Amazon to come to the Northeast region. And when you look at natural gas and you say, well, why don't we have more infrastructure? Why weren't we thinking ahead and planning for such an expansion? So it's not only, it really is only when we start to have to compete against other states and other regions, and you know more about that and have to worry about that day to day. But I think we're not educated that way in high school, and then we're not, we become educated that way depending on what business we're in. So I think that was a very important point. An excellent hearing today. To Mrs. Boback, Representative Boback, thank you for inviting us. I think that a couple of things really stood out and made me think about it, but Gina was talking about the free and reduced lunch, and we also did that in the Hazleton Area School District, and we have over 11,000 children, and it just became too much of an obstacle apparently with the computer system, that there were so many children that qualified for free reduced lunch and breakfast that rather than having a system, they just said, well, it's easier for us to give all 11,000 a free and reduced lunch, which 11,000 students in my district, if you think about that, we have some very affluent families, and their children are getting free breakfast and free lunch. And you had a great perspective saying, look at the burden that it just took off the middle class, the people that are making $21,000 a year and they're struggling, $30,000 a year and struggling. But on the other hand, who's paying for that? So it is a massive expansion. So, yes, so Chairman Benninghoff was saying, well, who's paying for that? Are the seniors paying for that? And we hadn't really looked at it that way because it's just a federal expansion. I guess Tobash would know more about that. But that expansion, when you look at the pie chart of our budget, it's just like, oh, welfare, it's going up, and it's going up, it's going up. And so that's an issue. And I think that it's more, maybe if you're a family that wasn't working, there's still, we have so many students that they're in this cycle of poverty and they're stuck in it. And if you're getting everything for free and your only choice is to have to get out of the house and work hard and get less, then there really is no incentive to work. And it's just this cycle of poverty is growing. And then I think, Ms. Grady, you kind of like kicked the elephant in the room because you said, you used some words that sometimes people don't use in certain circumstances, but when you said moral virtues, I think everybody was like, oh, wow. Moral virtues, an attachment to work, moral values, attachment to work, work ethic. We're not doing enough with students. So my question is, you talked about a little bit about that, but I don't know if you can just elaborate, like how do we get students excited? How do we get teachers to teach that in a classroom and expose them to that?
Okay, so they say the attachment to work, if it's not formulated, I believe it's by age 16, that it's not going to come to fruition. And that's where they are starting their first job when they're 12, 13, 14. In some instances, now with changes in the way that parents are working 2 or 3 jobs, it's a challenge for the parents to be able to get their children to work. Different pieces come into play with that. But even internships and volunteering, teaching children the importance of philanthropic involvement. We work with teachers and educators, and then we work with businesses. And a lot of times we'll have businesses, they're pointing the finger at the educators. And we have educators, and they're pointing the fingers at the business. And so we try to get them around the table and understand the challenges that each of them are facing and come together to come up with solutions. And those are some of the initiatives that we've put into place. So we have done educator in the workplace programs, which is a challenge because that involves navigating teachers' unions, navigating the businesses and participating, funding sources. We would love to be able to put 150, 200 teachers between 11 school districts through that program, but we've done it consistently for over 10 years. So that's one way that we get the educators into the workplace so they bring that back to their students in the classroom. We also work to have students participate in real-world experiences, so job shadowing, bringing businesses into the schools to talk about what they do, giving those students opportunities as youngsters to get summer employment and part-time jobs, and that's where they're forming that attachment to work. So they may go home and mom and dad, they may be taking advantage of benefits and they don't work, but they can still come out of that cycle if they have support from other avenues.
Okay, thank you.
Real quickly, I have a couple quick comments or maybe questions. But some of you talked about your integration within the schools, and I personally think that that's paramount. And it's going to take some cultural changes because a lot of schools don't necessarily want someone else coming and telling them how to do it. You know, locally, we have a private group called Private Industry Council, and they actually have a program called Blueprints for Success, and they bring 15, 16 kids. It doesn't cost them in summer for 2 weeks, and they take them into businesses. I personally think that we are remiss if we think a 16, 17, 18-year-old student is sitting around daydreaming about all the career opportunities, regardless of the fact that they have these things, and a lot more opportunities than some of us did when we were younger. But at 16, 17, you generally aren't looking outside your own neighborhood. And if you happen to grow up in an area where there's a lot of factories or had been, or you had these generational jobs where you went to work because dad went there and dad went there because grandfather went there, you don't look very broad. So part of me says somehow we've got to change how guidance counselors and people encourage job choices. Because I don't think the average student, and you look at, you know, even outside our rural districts and in some of the urban areas where maybe someone isn't thinking beyond 3 or 4 blocks down the road, what career jobs? I'm curious of how you do that, because you made a statement, Lindsay, specifically. It said that the underemployed really are overlooked and are our middle class. Mm-hmm. I'm curious of all three of your responses on that a little bit. And I'd like to get you some information on that at Blueprints for Success thing, because I think you're heading down that road, and this woman's been doing this for 20 years, that it might be something that you could share with us now. But as far as elaborating a little bit on your thought on the underemployed, we always talk about the unemployed, and we put a ton of resources in that.
So we have a number of people who fill positions that they started off as entry-level positions, and they want the opportunity to go up the next rung in that career ladder. But they're working full-time, they might be supporting a family at home, and the resources in terms of the dollars that might be required to get that additional training to go up that next step isn't available to them, as well as the support that comes along with that. We look at career links and the number of services that are available there. But oftentimes, if that person is going to work every day, they're working hard and they're supporting themselves, they're not eligible for services like that. And so by helping them get up that next rung in the ladder, individuals who are unemployed would naturally, we hope, backfill into some of those positions and then be able to take advantage of opportunities to work their way up the career ladder. Probably in Lackawanna County, the most well-established career ladder is in healthcare. So having somebody who might start off as a nurse aide and then getting a certified nurse aide up into LPN, RN, and work their whole entire way up the ladder. Now, those are high priority occupations, so there's a lot of funding that's available for that, and we have employers who are able to provide assistance in that manner. But that's only one industry in the mix in the county, and other employers aren't able to do that, or students aren't aware of the ways that they can work their way up the career ladder. So that's just as important for adults as it is for children to see that path, to have a vision of what that path can be, and have someone to be able to give them assistance, both financially, guidance, at home, to navigate that path.
Gina, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Sure, and I think when we look at the underemployed for our area in Wyoming County, I noticed recently that our population of ages 18 to 24 is only 8%. And so we're losing a lot of our young people who would normally be in those entry-level positions. So who has to fill those entry-level positions, but the next level, who've already gone to college, who already have a four-year degree or higher, and who maybe should be a little bit higher up the employment chain, but there's no one in Wyoming County at that basic entry level with their careers to fill those positions. So that kind of hit me when we started talking about the middle class, was that only 8% of our population is 18 to 24. So they're going to college and they're leaving and taking those entry-level positions somewhere else, and then maybe coming back to Wyoming County, but now where those jobs are going to them now, because now they're back in the area and have to almost start over. So I think that's a lot of it, is a lot of people return, and that's kind of throughout our region. That age, if you look at that age, and that's throughout Pennsylvania, because there's an initiative right now to keep that age here in Pennsylvania. So while there are great schools, again, they're going to our great schools and then moving on and not taking those entry-level positions, which leaves the next group to cover them.
Well, it goes back to our earlier dialogue and the fact that we have less and less people going in there. That's less and less personal income taxes that are being paid. Historically, as you get older and retire, you may not be as big of a consumer purchasing things. You're not purchasing the stuff of starting a new home and raising children. And so there's a double economic impact on our state from loss of sales tax, personal income tax dollars, and an increase oftentimes in demands of services for those as they age in our Commonwealth. It's really helpful having three different representations here from different chambers. I can't thank you enough on that. I was curious regarding if any one of you think that we need better flexibility in some of our funding programs, specifically in funding for post-high school education. I was in healthcare several years ago, and one of the things we did see is that you couldn't necessarily get money from FIA if you wanted to go into nursing. So if you have somebody re-entering the workforce, either through divorce, loss of spouse, whatever reason, maybe just raise your children when you get back in, a lot of them didn't have the money to either pay for daycare, pay for the education, and still pay their household bills. What's your thoughts on better flexibility within funding sources? Again, we only have to control what we do here on the state level. I think some of the tax stuff we talked about, we can do more from a policy perspective, but the workforce seems to be a very key common theme we're hearing across the state. I don't know if anybody has a response.
Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I just want to add, when you talk about underemployed, when I retired from banking, I was doing professional recruiting for a while, and I ran into many people that lost executive jobs, high-level jobs in business. I specialized in banking, finance, insurance, and a lot of people that came to me lost their jobs at that high level, and now they had to take a much lower-paying job, and they're not just could not get back up to the same income level that they were at previously. I just want to add that point, okay? But as far as post-education, I think that's very important. I really like the idea that everyone would have the opportunity for graduate work in colleges. And I know income limitations are a big problem for a lot of families and students. I was impressed. I just came back this past weekend from a trip in Europe, and I was surprised to talking to people in Germany that the cost of education for anyone in Germany, even if you're not a resident, it could be someone coming there internationally, is only $70 a year, or $70 a semester. And I thought, that's incredible. How could that be? But anyway, it's a Germany, socialist country. But anyway, but I do like the idea that everyone should have the opportunity for college education. And we got some great schools in the area. We have Penn State, Misericordia. We got the schools in Wilkes-Barre. We have LCC. And we've got a tremendous base of education here in Luzerne County. And I'm glad that many of our people are able to access that. Go ahead.
I'll from the flip side of training programs, so dollars that are funneling down from WIOA, and we're looking at the stipulations that may be placed on those dollars coming down through the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. We have grant dollars that flow into Lackawanna County and into the region. Some of them have really well thought out intentions, pre-apprenticeship type models, building construction trades, but they have limitations on age, could be age 18 to 24, income, how much money they could contribute towards the program that doesn't cover the cost of the entire program. So we generally see that they have really great intentions, but they're not realistic for the majority of people who want to use them and who can use them. So that's where we see a challenge from programs other than the collegiate avenue, but things that might be coming down the pipeline to help people who they're eager. They go to work every day. They have the work ethic. Now they just need somebody to help them with the skill set or take that next step.
Thank you. I hope we can have the liberty to follow up with some of you folks. I want to get on the next panel, not hold you up outside of here. You've been very helpful, very informative. You know, I look at the EITC program that we allow businesses to invest some of their tax dollars into schools and giving families choices. Several years ago, some of the members here that were on my finance committee, we passed a bill known as PEP, Pennsylvania Investing in Employment. Unfortunately, it was scratched under this current administration, but the concept was that an employer, instead of paying all your income tax to the Commonwealth, if you could reinvest that in creating jobs, full-time jobs, we would let you offset your tax liability. To me, that was kind of parallel what we do with the ITC program, which has already been self-evident to be very functional and very purposeful. But I think we need to start changing how we do things in Pennsylvania. I think we are great state, great commodities. So any of those things that come along, you think about sharing with us, let us know. I want to close out reminding people something that several of you said, the importance of volunteering. It gives you a sense of purpose. As an employer, that is my final question I ask. Tell me something that you do not expecting to get paid. You'd be surprised how many people cannot answer that question or have not done that. To me, that's a character issue, and that's as important to me as some of the letters following your name. So I appreciate all the stuff that you shared, the emphasis, and we look forward to the next panel. As you depart, I'm going to have Dr. Bobak introduce the next panel for us. Thank you, all three.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're ready to convene our second panel. Thank you very much for your patience. We will start off with Dr. Thomas Boatsman, Mr. Cordia University, Dr. Dale Jones, Penn State University, and our gracious hosts, Dr. David Capola, Keystone College, and Susan Spry, Luzerne County Community College. I will go to my left to right, starting with the young lady. And gentlemen, you can proceed there, and then we'll ask questions afterwards. Yes,
Okay,
please,
great,
Ms. Spry,
thank you.
thank you.
I'm sorry, good afternoon. My name is Susan Spry, and I'm the Vice President of Applied Technologies and Workforce Development at Luzerne County Community College, and I'm presenting testimony today on behalf of Luzerne's President, Thomas Leary. And thank you all for the opportunity to address this committee on how higher education plays a substantive role in strengthening the middle class. Our college is celebrating its 50th year anniversary this year, and all through those 50 years, Luzerne has provided a gateway to higher education for thousands of underprepared students who might not have seen themselves as college material in a traditional higher education environment. Indeed, post-secondary education can take many forms. We heard that from our prior panelists as well, including schools specializing in skilled trades, community colleges, competency-based programs, and traditional public and private universities and four-year colleges. We need individuals in our workforce who are trained and educated by all of these institutions. To the extent that early college courses enable students to get a head start on college, taking college courses while in high school holds great potential for improving college access and completion rates and for lowering the cost of degrees for students and families. Luzerne, as well as I'm sure my colleagues, offer early college courses, and in the last academic year, we enrolled around 1,250 high school students in the early college program. And across the Commonwealth, in the 15-16 academic year, Pennsylvania's 14 community colleges enrolled 15,545 high school students in college-level courses. The National Student Clearinghouse Research Center's recent report cited an increasing number of students who enroll in at community colleges later earn a traditional four-year degree. They found that in Pennsylvania, about 10% of all new fall enrollments were early college or dual enrollment students, and about 2/3 of those dual enrollment students continued at a four-year college after high school, with about 64% earning a bachelor's degree within 5 years after high school. So given the fact that the average community college student works either full-time or part-time, and many have family responsibilities, the time that it takes these students to earn their bachelor's degree after transferring is nothing short of remarkable. About 60% of those students who transfer receive a degree in less than 3 years, receive their bachelor's degree in less than 3 years. This route for degree attainment is almost equivalent to the 65% of students who begin at a private or public university and complete a degree within 6 years. It also exceeds the 54% of students, who begin at a public college and receive a degree. So all of this is well documented. So when we're looking at strengthening the middle class, certainly access and completion are two critical pieces to higher ed. Additionally, the students who enroll in certificate programs at community colleges have about a 1 in 3 rate of attaining a bachelor's degree, and more than 2/3 of these students receive an associate's degree within 3 years. So clearly, community colleges provide a path to a bachelor's degree for a large segment of the population. We work closely with our higher education partners in the region and across the state to create a seamless path for students so they don't need to repeat coursework which would cost them time and money. If a student transfers to another institution before receiving their associate degree, we encourage those students to do a reverse transfer, those final credits, so they can receive a 2-year degree while they're working toward their bachelor's degree, in case something interrupts that completion. Another method of ensuring smooth and successful transition from a community college to other partner institutions is our dual admissions programs. And that's a concept where students are considered fully admitted to both the community college and the destination institution, with the expectations of meeting all required college or university conditions. Students may benefit as well at those institutions from additional financial incentives, such as waived fees, institutional aid and scholarships, and access to resources at both institutions. My work is mainly around workforce development. So on the economic development side, as our prior panelists talked about, the role of higher education, and particularly the role of a community college, is to provide the training and education that helps build the foundation of the regional workforce. We were talking about the brain drain a little bit with the prior panelists. And about 85% of our students at the community college stay in the region and become that middle skills workforce. An additional role that community colleges play is to upgrade the skills of the current workforce, that underemployed group that we talked about a few moments ago, through lifelong learning and training opportunities. And yet another role of community college is to assist those who already have a credential and who are looking to develop particular skill sets to find another career. So we see a lot of people who are already credentialed coming to a community college to get a particular skill. At this point, economic development and workforce development are so closely aligned that the terms are often used interchangeably. The number one concern expressed by many businesses looking to locate into a particular region is whether they have the current workforce talent or the talent pipeline to support their businesses. Our hope is that when we collaborate with employers, they can find their employees right here in northeastern Pennsylvania. We talked about the skills gap, the prior panelists did, and we have that, of course, and it's evident in many employment sectors. Workforce development and the labor pool availability have become key factors in economic developers' work, centering on business attraction, expansion, and retention. As we get together and speak with our employer partners in higher ed, a common concern that we hear is that there are not enough students going into the skilled trades and advanced manufacturing careers, and that in addition to pipeline problems, large numbers of long-term employees will be retiring in the next few years, and those employees will be taking that skill and experience with them unless we become much more focused on the transfer of skills and knowledge. Registered apprenticeship programs, we mentioned briefly in the prior panel, is combining on-the-job training and mentoring along with related educational instruction is another initiative that can help fill critical skill shortages. At Luzerne County Community College, we're the educational partner with 3 companies currently who have registered apprenticeships in Pennsylvania, and we provide a mechatronics degree while the students are learning on the job. And those companies are Griner Packaging, Intermetro Industries, and Hershey Foods. Employers express concern also about new employees not being work-ready, even though they possess the skills and knowledge necessary to perform their job tasks. So-called soft skills, we call them essential skills now, are lacking in some employees. Qualities such as communication, problem solving, critical thinking, interpersonal skills, and teamwork are work skills necessary in virtually all job categories. Luzerne addresses this by structuring classes to simulate the work environment and by placing students in applied learning situations that challenge them to develop these critical work behaviors. Some of our programs also offer work-based learning, internships, field placements, and clinical rotations that are built right into the academic programs and provide credit. We rely heavily on program advisory boards. We often talk about developing curriculum by starting with the end in mind, that meaning the employers and what they need, and developing the curriculum to meet those needs. One thing I will say is that state-of-the-art equipment and facilities are a costly investment for any institution, yet employers expect educational institutions to possess these critical assets to adequately prepare students for employment. Grants and capital investment in education by public and private sectors enables entities such as community colleges to buy the equipment and upgrade those facilities to educate and train the workforce that's needed to attract and retain business and industry. Luzerne County Community College welcomes the opportunity to be involved in economic and workforce development in northeastern Pennsylvania, and we see ourselves as a critical partner in those efforts to harness our collective regional talents and resources. So in closing, I would like to thank our committee again for the opportunity to address you. The testimony provided by the prior panelists, and I'm sure my colleagues, provides evidence to the roles that economic development, workforce development, and higher education play in strengthening the middle class. Thank you.
Boatsman. Good afternoon, Chairman Benninghoff, Representative Boback, and our distinguished legislators and colleagues. I'm Tom Boatsman. I'm president of Misericordia University in Dallas, and I'm pleased to be able to talk to you today about workforce development, economic empowerment, and the role of higher education. We're a proud partner of the Commonwealth in providing jobs, economic vitality, and strong communities. As a private Catholic liberal arts institution, we provide opportunities for women and men in an affordable, meaningful, productive course of higher education. We have over 2,800 students on campus and offer them degrees in 37 different programs. A number of our students are the modern daughters of the coal miners. We were founded to be the education source for the coal miners. We have 88 students on campus this semester over the age of 50 pursuing a degree. 88 students over the age of 50 pursuing a degree. Half of those are undergraduates, half are graduates. We have 16 women and their families living on our campus. We're one of only 8 schools in the United States, in the entire United States, that welcomes women and children to campus. We're the only one that provides housing for those families. These are families that have been physically, emotionally, and in other ways torn apart. And at the end, we get graduates. We had 5 students graduate this past spring, and I can't wait till those parents get the money together to send their kids to college. They're all going to college. They liked it the first time, they're going to love it the second time. We have over 100 students who have documented learning disabilities, students who wouldn't otherwise be accepted into higher education, and would eventually be those where we're talking about state and federal support. Those students come, they work hard, they do everything they can, and they get degrees, and they go out and get jobs. Over 90% of our students get jobs directly out of college. So we're providing a workforce, but also giving students who otherwise wouldn't have that opportunity the chance to get those jobs and to keep those jobs. And I'm proud how much we work with the other higher education institutions in the area. And LCC, we do so much with reverse transfer and other ways to get students into college to complete their education and to make sure that we're providing the workforce of the future. We have a number of high-demand disciplines such as occupational therapy, speech-language pathology, physical therapy, and medical imaging and nursing. Misericordia is the largest producer in sheer numbers of healthcare professionals in Northeast Pennsylvania. We're the largest provider of those professionals. To keep doing that, we need 3 things. We need facility, we need faculty, we need clinical space. And all of us are working together to provide those opportunities to our students. We have a high retention rate. The college scoreboard came out today from the federal government, and you'll see that we have an 85% retention rate, that 74% of our students eventually get a degree. We're expected, based on our demographics, to be at 59%. So we outperform by 15% what we're expected to do. Our retention rates, our graduation rates are better than most other schools in the region, in the state, and nationally. We're very proud of that. We have the Insulaco Center for Career Development that facilitates internship placement, mentoring opportunities, and other activities with industry partners. We guarantee students through our Guaranteed Placement Program that they will receive a job, or we will pay for a paid internship to help them get a job. We have yet to have a student take us up on the guarantee. They all get jobs. We start in the first year, and each year students go out and they take internship opportunities. They learn about resume writing, interviewing, what it takes to be successful in the workforce. They get the jobs, they keep those jobs, and fortunately enough, those Misericordia grads can then hire the next generation. Over 90% of students who take part in internships nationally have said that they'd accept a job from the current employer. So it's also a very, very good economic development retention strategy for the area. Those students who take those on-campus services and skills develop those skills that they master their college studies and develop competent skills to work with academic excellence and other competencies. We emphasize in our learning environment that it balances academic rigor and principle-informed living. For example, we have 80 courses that tie service directly into the academic content of the course. Our students last year performed over 190,000 hours of volunteer education. So if the chairman would like to come and walk around my campus someday, we'll walk over, we'll visit the dining hall, and I'll guarantee you at least 9 out of 10 students will tell you exactly what they've done on volunteering. And when I find out who the 10th one is, we'll get them going too. It's a wonderful part of it. Our students, faculty, and administrators experience exposure to science and technology fields, teaching, business, and they're ready to adapt to complexity and change. I think that many of you noted yesterday that we started a Center for Human Dignity. We're going to talk a lot about medical ethics and how we can make sure that all are treated with dignity, because of the growing number of our students who are working in healthcare management or other areas related to the healthcare fields. We've been using state and federal grants to help provide modern facilities for our students and state-of-the-art teaching technology for those providers and others. And I want to thank you for providing those opportunities to apply for both state grants and for RCAP funds that help us to build our facilities. We are currently in a 1957 science building that was designed for up to 800 students, and we have almost 3,000 students, and we're healthcare intensive. Many of the students who come to Misericordia are first generation. They're low and middle income families, and they demonstrate an appreciation for what a college education gives them and the opportunity for professional care and career opportunities. As part of higher education, private higher education, we are one of 89 private colleges and universities in the Commonwealth. We provide enormous benefit. The private institutions enroll 40% of Pennsylvania's students. We award 49% of all degrees, and we do that with 11% of the funding that the state provides to higher education. 42% of the students, 49% of the degrees, 11% of the funds. Private colleges and universities provide a tremendous benefit to the Commonwealth with a relatively small investment. I want to thank you very publicly again for your support for the institutional assistant grants last year. At the federal level, in about 3 more days, we're going to lose the Perkins grant. And some of you have read my, my op-eds about the Perkins grant. Those grants, the SEOG, is how I got through college. And we're going to take them away. The Perkins grant is even more shocking because there's a cost share. We've invested $600,000 of Misericordia money and donor money into those scholarships. And the federal government is going to stop a program where we cost share with students who have need. The institutional assistance grant, which sounds like money that just goes to the college, is a need-based program. It's one that is based on the number of students who qualify for FIA and the Ready to Succeed scholarships. So I thank you for your support of the institutional assistant grant. That was extremely important to us on our campuses. We work to serve a diverse student population, facilitate economically powered cohort ready to contribute to the vitality of our local communities, and partner in job creation and community economic development. I'm honored to participate in this panel with my friends in business, industry, higher education, and government. We know that our legislators, the chambers of commerce, and the colleges and universities deeply value the historic relationships we've developed and are keenly aware of the need for continued collaboration as we identify the personal and professional needs of our people and our students. The success of our communities to anticipate and respond proactively to the challenges and opportunities of tomorrow's society will be grounded in the robust creativities and cooperation of all in government, higher education, business, and industry. We are so proud that we can invite students to campus, that we can invite veterans to campus, we can invite senior citizens to campus, that we can have Misericordia be a place where we provide a high-quality education in an atmosphere where all are welcome. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Doctor. Good afternoon, Chairman Benninghoff, Representative Boback, and members of the House Majority Policy Committee. I am Dr. Dale Jones, Chancellor and Chief Academic Officer at Penn State Wilkes-Barre, one of 20 undergraduate campuses of the Pennsylvania State University. My academic field of specialization is public administration, and I have 27 years of experience in higher education at 6 universities and colleges, including Penn State. Welcome to the Penn State Wilkes-Barre campus. We are honored to, we are honored to host this hearing, which is a component of the Policy Committee's initiative to grow and strengthen Pennsylvania's middle class. I would like to add that we are also pleased to host our colleagues from Misericordia University, Keystone College, and Lucerne County Community College. And I agree with my colleagues here that we do a wonderful job in this area of cooperating and collaborating with each other to make the community stronger and the workforce better. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to provide the committee with my perspectives on how Penn State is educating a skilled workforce for the jobs of today and tomorrow. I'll make some comments about Penn State University. The state legislature designated Penn State as Pennsylvania's only land-grant university. Today, Penn State has a broad mission of teaching, research, and public service. Penn State is recognized as one of the top 100 universities in the world. There are more than 79,000 undergraduate students studying over 160 majors at the 20 campuses and the World Campus, our online learning institution or location. New majors are being launched to meet the demands of a changing, challenging, and technologically oriented world. We provided you the admissions booklet titled, "What Will Your Penn State Story Be?" In it, you will find statistics about our undergraduate student population, campus locations, baccalaureate degree programs, attendance costs, and more. Today, the Commonwealth campuses enroll approximately 30,000 students with the aim of enabling success for students who wish to pursue an affordable and easily accessible education. For Penn State Wilkes-Barre, enrollments have shifted over time from over 1,000 students to less than 600 today. The 2+2 plan is the most common path to a Penn State degree. It includes the first 2 years at one campus, followed by 2 years at another campus to finish a degree. More than 50% of our students follow this path. Penn State generates billions of dollars for the Commonwealth's economy and serves communities throughout the entire state. With campuses throughout Pennsylvania, Penn State represents a strong economic engine. Right here, Penn State Wilkes-Barre is a major employer and a valuable source of students, faculty, and staff who keep the local economies of Lehman Township, Dallas Township, the city of Wilkes-Barre, and Lucerne County going by the expenditure of funds in our wonderful communities. Penn State University truly is one university geographically dispersed. Founded in 1916, Penn State Wilkes-Barre is the oldest institution of higher learning in the Wyoming Valley. In our region, Penn State Wilkes-Barre is vital to the life of the Wyoming Valley and to northeastern Pennsylvania's economy. Our students have access to extensive resources of the entire university to enrich their education. Our students learn with the latest technology to better equip them for tomorrow's workplaces. We prepare our graduates with critical thinking and problem-solving skills, teamwork experience, writing proficiency, and we prepare our graduates to enter and eventually lead in a quality labor force. Every day, our dedicated faculty and staff are hard at work closing the skills gap, the gap between the skills needed to succeed in the professional world and the skills with which young professionals leave college. I am excited to tell you how we are getting it done. In my remaining brief time, I am going to discuss how Penn State is successfully educating graduates for jobs that grow the economy and the middle class by focusing on the following 6 areas: innovation and entrepreneurship, academic programs, emphasis on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM programs, technology, recruitment, retention, and graduation of students, and finally, value to the community. First, innovation and entrepreneurship. A high priority for the university is innovation and entrepreneurship. The Invent Penn State initiative, announced by President Eric Barron in January 2015, is designed to leverage the university's size and broad research strength to drive job creation, economic development, and student career success. Penn State committed $30 million toward the effort, investing in academic programs, additional faculty and incentives, resources for startups and investors, partnerships with businesses and government, and creation of physical spaces to support entrepreneurs. Another handout that you received is the Invent Penn State Year 2 Update brochure. Invent Penn State has awarded $50,000 seed grants to 17 innovation hubs to jumpstart entrepreneurial activities in campus communities across the Commonwealth. All of them are built upon partnerships with local community organizations and local industries to meet the needs of their unique business startup ecosystems. Since their openings, the hubs have accelerated more than 50 startups, supported more than 1,000 entrepreneurs, and hosted nearly 100 events and pitch competitions. Through Invent Penn State Wilkes-Barre was provided with 2 $50,000 seed grants in the last 2 years to partner with the Greater Wilkes-Barre Chamber of Business and Industry to transform the lower level of the Innovation Center, subsequently renamed the Think Center, in downtown Wilkes-Barre into a technology and multimedia center. The Innovation Center houses the Wilkes-Barre Connect program, an initiative created to ensure that all startups and existing businesses have access to the providers, services, and facilities they need to grow their businesses in northeastern Pennsylvania. With the seed grants, Penn State extends its commitment to helping our innovation in communities throughout the Commonwealth. In this way, Penn State is spreading a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship across the state. I'm going to move on now to our academic programs, some of our academic programs here. Currently, Penn State Wilkes-Barre offers 8 bachelor's degrees and 4 associate degrees. I want to highlight 4 academic programs that are relevant to current and evolving job markets. These selected programs are responsive to industries which require skilled graduates. First, our Surveying Engineering bachelor's degree program is a unique academic program that produces highly skilled and job-ready graduates. It is the only program of its kind in Pennsylvania and one of very few in the nation accredited by ABET, the Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology. Second, the campus will add a new degree program, Project and Supply Chain Management, and offer it in a consortium of 3 Northeast Pennsylvania or Penn State campuses. And those campuses are at Hazleton, Worthington, Scranton, and Wilkes-Barre. The program is scheduled to start on our campus in the fall of 2018. The third program is a new minor under development. According to Fortune magazine, the video game industry reported more than $23 billion in revenue in 2015. In order to prepare graduates for the growing video game industry, Penn State Wilkes-Barre is preparing a minor in game development. Game development in the U.S. allows entrepreneurs to place their products in a global multi-billion-dollar market. The minor will teach the skills and techniques required to develop modern video games, but will also examine other forms of gaming, such as card and board games. Game development goes beyond computer programming. It is interdisciplinary in nature, as it explores the artistic, social, and psychological aspects of video games. Fourth, the feasibility of offering an interdisciplinary inter-college minor in entrepreneurship and innovation, referred to as an ENTI minor, attractive to all majors at the Wilkes-Barre campus and based on regional needs, is under investigation. Of the 8 available clusters, the new Ventures cluster is favored for our campus. As a result of offering the minor, the Think Center that I described earlier in downtown Wilkes-Barre would then be utilized for entrepreneurship classes, internships, and business meetings. Next, I'll turn my attention to emphasis on STEM programs. Penn State Wilkes-Barre fully understands the importance of STEM programs to Pennsylvania and the nation. According to the United States Department of Commerce, STEM occupations are projected to grow by 8.9% from 2014 to 2024, compared to 6.4% growth for non-STEM occupations. Therefore, Penn State Wilkes-Barre conducts the following programs which are oriented towards generating interest in STEM fields and attendance at Penn State: the Science Olympiad, the Trigstar Competition, Girl Scout STEM Competition, Women in Science and Engineering, Engineering Open House, and Technology Student Association Test of Engineering Aptitude, Mathematics, and Science, or TEAMS competition. Let me next move on to a few words about technology. Regarding technology, we give advanced technology a high priority in order to ensure our students have a first-class education. The Science Center renovation was completed this summer, and the dedication ceremony is scheduled for October 18th. Classrooms are regularly renovated with upgraded technology on a rotating basis. To prepare our students for the software they will encounter in industry, the university has agreements with Adobe and Microsoft that give our students access to their products at no cost. The Surveying Engineering program, which I mentioned, has agreements with the Topcon and Leica firms, whereby they donate the latest equipment to the program, valued at nearly $1 million. Next, student recruitment, retention, and graduation. The following are some of our programs to enhance performance in these areas. Since 2015, we have operated a STEM dual enrollment program with 2 economically depressed school districts as on-site pilots. Those school districts are the Wilkes-Barre Area School District and the Northwest Area School District. Also, the TRIO Student Support Services at the campus for nearly 20 years serves 160 students. The federal TRIO programs are outreach and student services programs designed to identify and provide services for individuals from disadvantaged backgrounds. TRIO programs serve and assist low-income students, first-generation college students, and individuals with disabilities to progress through academic pipeline. The TRIO Student Support Services staff here coordinates a variety of services for our students, including academic advising, tutoring, career counseling, financial counseling, cultural activities, academic workshops, and assistance in transitioning to other campuses. I also want to speak briefly about the Struthers Family Career Services Center here, which helps our students with career planning and employment services, internships, placements, and connections to jobs after graduation. The third item in your packages is the excellent Penn State Career Guide for undergraduate and graduate students. Value to our community. Finally, in the local community, our continuing education office serves other organizations in Lucerne, Wyoming, Bradford, and Sullivan counties, offering quality programs to support the workforce development needs of companies and the professional and personal development needs of individuals. Continuing education at Penn State Wilkes-Barre is focused on improving career competencies and skills of the local workforce, which are ingredients for attracting new businesses to the region. In addition to our main campus office, we have a CE Northern Tier Center located in rural Towanda. We believe our partnership with the Earth Conservancy recently creates an opportunity to aid residents of our community, improves the skills and wages of unemployed and underemployed residents, including veterans, increases the labor pool of qualified workers, and strengthens the region's economy. In closing, Penn State University has an extensive array of programs and a solid track record of educating graduates for jobs that grow the economy and expand the middle class. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you the many programs and initiatives at Penn State Wilkes-Barre, and I also want to thank you for your service to the citizens of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I would be happy to answer any questions when we get to that portion of today's hearing.
You okay? Need a break, or we're okay? Okay. Well, it's my honor to be here, and thank you for your time. And often we are competitors while collaborators, so it's interesting to watch the dynamic here, and because we all want to demonstrate our distinctiveness as schools. But what I've heard here today is very encouraging, that we have so much more in common for the good of not only the Commonwealth, but the good of our families and students. It's very encouraging to me. I'm from Keystone College, which is in a small town called La Plume. You probably never heard of it, but it's up there near Factoryville. There's no factory in Factoryville either. So the college was founded in 1868 to serve the returning veterans from the Civil War. And we've continued that heritage for the last 150 years. Have about we have approximately 1,500 undergraduate students, about 100 graduate students, and 100 adult online students. And we were pretty much founded so that we could be a regional college, serve in the region, serve the community, and work together as best as possible. And happily, it's been a long tradition of success. Usually each September and May, there may be a few elbows rubbed, with new students showing up or seniors graduating, and the community says, oh yeah, this is a college town. But for the most part, because of collaborations that have been supported by the state and the legislature, we have sidewalks, water, sewer, streetlights, parks, RACP grants that have just flowed for the last 40 years that have really enabled us to succeed. And without those grants, it'd be a completely different situation. I can assure you of that. There are about 600 full and part-time employees at this small little rural college, everywhere from full-time professors to adjuncts to part-time folks and vendors that come onto the campus. So rather than being repetitive and basically complimenting what many have said, perhaps I'll focus on three things. The first is there's a conversation about, or discussion, or perhaps debate about what's the value of a college education at all. And first and foremost, it tends to get focused around debt and personal credentials. Whereas at my school, and probably hundreds of others like us, we focus more on the common good. In other words, how is the common good served through the empowerment of an individual? So when someone becomes a doctor or a lawyer, a teacher, he or she, of course, assumes a family-sustaining job, but serves the community. And so we focus a great deal on what can you give back. And so one of the greatest fears, as you probably know, irrational fear, I believe, is that of debt, student debt. And so we keep on top of that, try to remove every possible obstacle. My first year, this is my 5th year, my first year I was there, I had 3 parents come up to me, "You tricked us." And I said, "What do you mean? I've only been here 3 months. How could I have tricked you?" You know? And they said, you didn't tell us we had to pay for books." I'm the first in my family to go to college, but, I know you have to buy books. And so the following, semester, or year rather, we fixed that. We worked with our bookstore provider, which was becoming pretty much an apparel store anyway, and said, how do we provide consistent access to all the educational resources to all our students? And so we basically raised the tuition $200 to save them about $1,000 a year. That may sound like tricky math, but basically it costs between $800 and $1,000, sometimes $1,500 for books and resources to go to school. And so what we did is took out a capital lease with Apple, and every student receives an iPad with all of the resources he or she needs on that. And so we moved to a digital format. For those disciplines or topics that can't be digitized, such as paints and lab glasses and lab coats, we roll it all into the same price, because now students are coming to us for 100% of the business, if you will, of books. Whereas before they were going to Amazon, the books were the wrong editions, they were coming in 3 weeks late, and it was usually the economically disadvantaged kids who were spending hours and hours trying to figure out how to just catch up. So we fixed that piece. I'm not saying everyone's going to do this, but there are about 40 other schools that are now doing it, and we're sort of like their little poster child, so that's all right. But it's not just that, it's also people are really afraid of debt. All of these terrible, terrible stories of students assuming hundreds of thousands of dollars, they've just been misadvised. Our schools, we don't do that. And so we wanted to make it formalized, and so we began what's called the Keystone Commitment. We take out an insurance policy on each student that comes in and says, after 4 years or 5 years or 6 years, whatever it is, takes you to graduate, if you make less than $40,000, we help you pay your loan back. And it's on a scale, and we want to remove all of the fear of debt. And by the way, it's not just about the money, it's about along the way, we have a 4-year developmental program called Stairs to Success. We follow you, we give you the edges, we give you the entrance, we show you where you're going, we help you try to find your way. And all of us do this, by the way, not just Keystone. When I say all of us, we all are about high touch, high student-centered kinds of education. We're not these elitist ivory tower places where students get lost in the sauce, pardon the expression. We're the kind of places that really care and believe that we're in this together. So if a student wants to go into a not-for-profit work, or wants to be in a profession that's more of people helping or service and earns less than $40,000, we're there to help you. Okay, so that's the first thing, is this kind of personal credential, but also serving the common good. The second is, it was mentioned at the earlier panels, some of their comments, never want to estimate the power of internships. Okay, they are so important, and so we all of us, I'm sure, connect with our alumni, with the local businesses, and connect our students with internships to try and provide them clear pathways to success. And if you excuse me, because I still have 4.5 minutes here, but one of my greatest stories, best stories is, Brian, he wanted to be a newspaper reporter his whole life since he was second grade. He told me, and so he's I'm gonna do this. So we got him an internship at the Scranton Times-Tribune. He's there for the whole summer. He got a few bylines. I noticed he was in the paper, and he comes back in his senior year, in September, and he's avoiding me. And I'm like, oh man, what did he do? So I finally track him down after about a month, and I said, Brian, how did it go? And he said, Dr. Coppola, thanks for all the help, but there's no way in heck I'm going to do that kind of work, And I'm embarrassed. He said, that's the best news I've heard, all month. Why torture yourself for the next 20 years in a career or a profession or something that you don't want to do? So now let's pivot. Let's switch. What else can you do? You're an excellent communicator. You're a smart kid. So he's now in his, third year of law school at UPenn, because he was able to pivot. So you can do it, but it's only if you care enough to do it together. And that's what our kind of schools do. We really do chase down the students, if you will, or walk with them. So internships, in my mind, are invaluable. The third thing is that we're the kinds of places that are trying to prepare our students, and I heard Susan say this very well, prepare our students with the competencies for jobs we don't yet know about. I mean, we do know how to prepare for the ones that we do know. So, for example, at Keystone, we're the only, by the way, I'm in both Wyoming and Lackawanna counties, got 300 acres up there, so I get a lot of attention from a lot of representatives, so it's very nice, and, senators. So when you're in 2 counties, that's what happens. But anyway, we're at the gateway of the Marcellus Shale, and so we have a high emphasis on the sciences, on chemistry, on geology, and quite frankly, also, there's going to be another 110 hotels built up there within the next, 10 to 12 years. So it's business programs. We partnered with Marriott, so we know what they want when they build, a courtyard, et cetera. So it's kind of reverse engineering. We all do this. I just want you to know we all do this, and so it's a way of us saying we're invested in the region and in the community, but it's preparing for the jobs we don't yet know. Competencies that are essential are critical thinking, creative thinking, communications. It's about problem solving, it's about team building. These are the kinds of things that in classical language we call the virtues of a liberal arts, of education, but the outcomes are more explicit in the way that I just expressed it. And so as a footnote, we're all very excited about the possibility of cars that drive themselves, that are automated. And yet, the more I research that, again, as a footnote, there will be millions of displaced jobs, millions. And so I don't know what that means. And so it's my job, our job, all of us, to say, okay, we have to prepare our students for that future. And then finally, and this is more of a thank you, not a criticism, it's more of a thank you. In 1991, higher education received about 12% of the state's budget. Now, this year, it'll be 6%. I'm happy for anything and grateful for anything, but I will let you know that you are my largest contributor every year, my largest donor. So it follows through FIA, Pell Grants, IAG, is a quarter of my budget. And so that's what enables us to keep our tuition under $25,000, is because of the state support. So thank you for that, especially for our nearly 50% who are first-time generation goers. We're really life-changing, we are life-changing institutions, and we're changing life, especially for the lower middle class. And we persist because that's how we are. We're stubborn. Our faculty and staff don't take raises every year. We can't afford it. But they believe in the students, they believe in the region, and they believe in their mission. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to also share what we're about, too.
Thank you to all our testifiers. I'm going to throw a question for you to ponder, and then we'll go to the members. And that is, had the luxury of listening to the previous panel.
I was, yeah.
And I was curious if there was anything that spoke to you or something that,
Yes, so I can start, and then we can pass it off. Was the impact tax on the Marcellus Shale? I can tell you that what ends up happening, or what has happened, is as families begin to accrue some resources, they're fixing up their houses, they're getting reliable cars, and then just as they were beginning to send their children to college, as soon as that began to dwindle, I saw a marked difference. I mean, close to 80 students who said, we have to stop out because we can't afford college in the same way that we could before. So it's not just how it affects businesses, it's also how it affects the future of education. So that was one thing that struck me.
Thank you for the question. What struck me was, I'm new to the area. I've been here since January, so I'm learning more and more about the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the challenges we face. But I'm impressed that the legislators, are those that were here today, and your colleagues that are elsewhere in the Commonwealth today in the legislature, I'm impressed with how you're willing to face these issues and make the tough decisions. And I would encourage you to do so. I've had the good fortune of living in some other states that are economically strong states, and I would say that and encourage you to make the tough decisions that are going to have to be made for the benefit of this state going forward. And the citizens of this state are going to have to recognize that there may be some sacrifices necessary to do what's necessary to make this a strong state again.
well, if any of those suggestions are specific or something you saw in another state you'd like to share with us at a later time, I'd like to hear that. But I was just kind of curious for those who are trying to be, and not that you aren't job stimulators, but in recruiters, it was good to have you listening. And I was just curious, as a common theme. I don't know if anyone else has a response to that.
So I work with the folks who are on the prior panel just about every day, and I think the conversation around the underemployed individual, which we had some conversation, is an often forgotten group, and I think the comment was made that is the middle class, and the schism between the haves and have-nots as it gets wider and wider, that's a group that really is left behind. So I think that economic development, workforce development, education triad can strengthen that, and I think that's where the solution is. Thank you.
Thank you.
I might just also add, I'm on the board of both the Scranton and the Wyoming Chambers of Commerce, and our message is consistently, what do you need from graduates? And so it's not as if we are living in splendid isolation. There's a real collaboration that's building that I think you should know about as well, because it's a grassroots kind of, it is grassroots effort. They are grassroots efforts. And I've been very encouraged. They say they need more technology, and then we try to train up IT people, appropriately in collaboration with Lackawanna College, Johnson College. There are about 12 of us within driving distance, close driving distance.
That's good, because
to
last
know.
week when we were down in Marcus Hook, we had a gentleman there who was a union welder, and he's talking about the fact that he's got 20-year-olds coming into his career field making $100,000 a year if they want to put the time in to do it. And so I think there's an array of academia that we need to be talking about and flexible. And anyhow, Dr. Boatsman?
I'm just going to echo some of the other comments. I mean, some of the comments from the community college are exactly what we see, and we're getting an increasing number of people that have got a welding degree or plumbing background who want to go get a business training. So a lot of that is how we work across the lines of not just degrees, but certificates and any other type of education that takes somebody to either get into the workforce or to take themselves from where they're underutilizing their skills and building them up so they can be even more successful. And that's a big theme of what's going on in higher education.
Thank you very much, Representative Fritz, and then Representative Bobeck will have a couple of questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll make it quick. On the receiving end of some of your comments, I have some very clear takeaways, and I see the energy, I see the focus, the dedication, the sincerity. But the number one attribute that I want to speak to and tip the hat is the optimism that you folks bring. That is a number one quality for young people, as as all the unknowns and of the world and the intimidation that comes with that is before them, you bring optimism. And I want to speak, Dr. Jones, if I may. We had a prior testifier that talked about the discount to attend school in Germany. So I was curious when we might be seeing a ribbon cutting for Penn State Frankfurt.
I'm not sure when that will happen.
And I am going to finish up here with a question. You spoke, Susan, about the community college student, and I'm going to use a little bit different descriptor. I'm going to call that perhaps a rural college student. Can you speak to their student debt and just provide, in the theme of awareness, what that may look like when they get done with a degree, and what kind of financial aid would assist them with that burden?
Yes, thank you for the question. So luckily at a community college, that part of a four-year experience is relatively, people pay as they go. You know, many students still use the traditional sources of Pell, FIA, SEOG. At a community college, luckily, if they receive a full range of those kinds of grant services, that pays for everything. Some students do take out loans, so I don't want to misspeak on that, but the loan incurrence is very minor at the community college level. Again, one of the great programs, speaking about optimism, that our colleagues have invited us to participate in is a dual admission program, so that the students are duly admitted at a community college and at a four-year institution. And I might have added that the commitment to the student is to complete the associates prior to going for the bachelor's, so they are saving that time and money as they progress. So really the time and money is really reduced by that kind of initiative. So we're very appreciative of our destination schools with that. Students still do sometimes graduate with debt, and I think the program that Keystone talked about was, Dr. Pellos, was great, you know, in terms of trying to have some kind of graduated help for those who maybe go into more of a service occupation. We have some programs that go from a few weeks to, you know, the two-year cycle. We did recently develop a welding program as a result of a grant initiative. And you are right, those students go through a 15-week program, one semester, and they can graduate with a specialized diploma and move out into very lucrative careers. We hope, Dr. Bozeman, that those students then, when they want to go into self-employment or some kind of management position, do go on. So that lifelong learning spectrum is definitely needed in society. Yeah.
Follow up. So when we were talking, some of our talking points were almost identical. 14 of those programs, those articulation agreements, are between Misericordia and LCC. We receive about 70 students this fall into transfer students, and a lot of those are RN, coming to BSN, and some of those students are going to go on and get an MSN, and then they're going to get a doctorate of nursing practice. So they are entering the workforce faster, more effectively, and they have different options to get them where they need to go. One of the things that drives me a little bit batty is that the federal statistics on student debt only include students who take federal money. So if an institution has students who don't have federal money or don't take debt, have zero debt, they're not included. And so some of those numbers are overstated. All of us look to keep the amount of debt as low as possible. The other part of it that makes me a little bit nervous about how that gets out in the popular press is that graduate degrees are very different from undergraduate. And I would encourage legislators to remember that FIA, that SEOG, that Pell, Perkins, the Ready to Succeed go to undergraduate students. If a student decides to go on and get an advanced degree, I don't understand the access part of that from the standpoint of the state or federal government. So counting that as part of their debt and making that an excuse not to fund something like FIA is really short-sighted and bad for economic development and bad for us. I applaud Pennsylvania's legislature. You have been consistently supportive of FIA, Ready to Succeed, and the institutional assistance grants. Please don't take a turn, like the federals have, to punishing students of limited resources by saying, well, they need to find it somewhere else because there's too much debt. That is It's entirely nonsense.
And just as a final comment, a parting shot, if you will, is I think it's also important to educate our people, whoever come to see us or come to see you, that a little debt is okay. In fact, it builds your ability to eventually get a car, to have a house, et cetera. And so this irrational fear of any debt is exactly that. It's irrational. And so I'm a small school. I had 350 graduates last year. Half of them had no debt when they graduated, 0. Okay, but that's because they're working like crazy. They're working 2-3 jobs to make, because they don't want to have any debt. The other half had between $22,000 and $25,000 of debt for a 4-year degree. So we think that is reasonable. We think that's manageable. It's a couple $100s a month, you know. So, and I'm sure all of us try to keep that as affordable as possible, even when the number of high school students is decreasing and the amount of government support has decreased by about half in the last 25 years. We're in it for the students, okay? And we're going to do it together.
Just so I'm correct, did you say you have students that are full-time, that are working 2 and 3 jobs?
Yes.
In addition to their student load?
I'm sorry?
In addition to carrying their academic load?
Yes, and so this becomes a problem because are they workers who are students or are they students who are working? And, you know, on initial blush, it sounds really good, no debt. But this is what I'm digging into now, saying, well, what are they missing or what are they losing by working 20, 30 hours a week? You know, that's a challenge.
I'm old school like you, and I feel a little skin in the game, but I'm finding an interesting irony when we talked earlier today about the individuals we can't even get to try to be employed at all, or even 20 hours a week, and they receive, you know, free breakfast, free lunch for their kids, oftentimes medical assistance and some other things. That is a tremendous wrestling match as policymakers, because both K through 12 and our welfare/human services is over 80% of our entire budget. And so anytime we have an economic downturn, obviously those are the first areas you look at if you have to trim. And it is very frustrating, and I applaud your students' stalwartness to seeing the investment in their hard work because they want to get that degree is what we're trying to cultivate in why it's good to go to work. Physically healthy, mentally healthy, socially healthy, good for your community and your family. Dr. Bobek.
Just a few comments. You'll notice that the second string came up, and just to explain, and we did mention this earlier, that so many of us take advantage of attending these policy committee meetings throughout the state. There were 3 that I knew of going on today, so with your indulgence, but also know that you're on tape. And that's so important. So those who were here earlier, they get to watch the ending this evening. Also, I'm the majority chair on the Appropriations Committee with the Education Subcommittee. And so what I will be doing is using your testimony when I meet with my group, because of course it has to do with funding, with the RCAPs, with all of the money situations that you spoke about today. So I will have your testimony to deal with my group, and I want to thank you so much for that. Last thing I would like to say, I go back when I remember Keystone was a junior college. Penn State, you weren't here. You came during my duration as I was getting older. Ms. Recordia, you were a college. And LCCC, I remember when you were LCC. So it's just such a pleasure to see how you evolved in this wonderful community that I serve. And I'm just honored that you were here with us. Your testimony was brilliant. It was excellent, and I want to thank you so much, once again, being a learning tool. So if you go to the Policy Chair's website, and we will make that available, my website, or any of the members who are here today, and then we share. All they have to do, all of our constituency has to do, is click that little arrow, and they will hear the entire testimony or parts thereof. So that will be advertised too. So again, your testimony certainly falls on ears that listen, and we're just so grateful that you're here. Thank you.
If you could endure, I have 3 quick questions. I'm actually doing the math in my head because she's always telling me she's 39, but all this, but I'll keep believing her. how do we / UI society strike a balance between what people dream about, what they want to be, ever since I was a kid I want to be, versus what industry and the economy and society says we need jobs in? I suspect it's a wrestling match for you when you have young students coming in, but as policymakers, we struggle with where we see money being invested, the degrees that people are getting, and the plight of, well, we're pumping out more people in degrees than we have job opportunities for. How communally do we change that, or address it, or adjust it?
I really believe we already are. And in education, the old model was 4 years of sage on the stage. Students are going out and doing so many things now. If they're in education, they're shadowing in the first semester. If they're in nursing or occupational therapy, they're out working with real patients very quickly. We have 5,000 patient visits into our speech-language pathology program. They're working with small children to improve their hearing. And so we are more and more focused on making sure that there is a balance between what is one going to do with their life and what are they going to do with their career. So I think David's story where he talked about the young man who hit the third year and changed his mind, very often our students are finding degrees and paths that we never imagined. And I hear so many of them talk about what they're studying now with educational psychology, and I'm thinking, I don't know what that field is, but they're offsets of it. And by giving the individual the chance to craft a path where they learn along the way and get the hard knocks in the internship and the clinicals, I think we're well on the path to doing that. That is a major change in how we educate for 10 years ago. I tease the students when they go to the library. We used to say, don't copy and don't talk to your neighbor. And now we go and we say, copy and talk to your neighbor. And by the way, we're going to deliver pizza at the end of the semester. Anything to get them working together and thinking about how teamwork goes and how they can expand and adapt to the future. I didn't know this whole Google thing was going to get to 19 years old. And now we look at Amazon and Google and say, how can we get them to be here? We can get them to be here by having a workforce that is trained to be flexible, adaptive, smart, and that rewards those who work hard and take chances.
I would agree with Tom that there's a revolution that's happening, actually. It's began about 15 years ago, where academic departments are no longer siloed. They realize that they have to be cross-disciplinary, that they have to work together. And the way that I know it's changing is because the way that we evaluate professors for tenure or for recognition is often how they cross-fertilize. And so in the world of accelerations that we're living in the world where communication just keeps accelerating, we have experts who, if they just talk with each other and also then talk with businesses and talk with, through advisory groups, through advisory councils, as well as with our legislators, then we know the three-legged stool can be responsive and vibrant. It's not just going to be living off on their own. Let's face it, we all had a dream of going to the moon, right? So not all of us can go to the moon, and so this is part of life. But at the same time, let's not squash the dreamers and the creative thinkers and the innovators. Mm-hmm. Let's do it through cross-disciplinary collaboration. I think that's where we're going, and that's what's exciting about higher education to me.
The only thing I would add is that, number one, there are changes that are occurring now, and there will be more dramatic changes in the future. But I would just remind us all that it's good for students to follow their passion. They're often given that advice, and that advice is still good today for them to follow their passion. We should also remember that life is a journey, and when you get on that pathway, you learn, as Dr. Botsman commented, you learn along the way, and you adjust and readjust and go on in new directions. So that would be what I would add.
With that comment in mind, if a student comes into you and says, well, I think I want to be an architect, do you ever talk about the potential for people staying in the same career path forever, or the fact that their generation is probably going to live to 90, and with today's healthcare, consistently to 90 and 100 years old, that I've been kind of using the phrase that the average adult can oftentimes change career paths 5 to 7 times in a working time limit. And I may be off number-wise, but if you get so narrowly focused on one thing, are you going to be adaptable? I watched my father get downsized at 58 and again at, believe it or not, 79 and a half, and then went and got a job part-time for Sheets because he wasn't going to stop.
So from my way of thinking, and I'm sure everyone has a take on this, it's about getting a good job, but it's also living a good life, okay? And that may sound like some sort of platitude, but how do we find meaning and fulfillment is usually in what we work, or where we work, or how we work. And so the skills and sensibilities, the context and the virtues that happen to become an architect are transferable. Those skills are transferable, whether it's design, whether it's implementation, whether it's construction, it's all transferable. And so our job is, this is what keeps me up at night. I don't know what the jobs of the future are that we're not preparing them for. And so we need to give them these kind of solid outcomes that are often called the liberal arts and sciences tradition that enable these competencies to be transferable across disciplines.
Last 2 quick questions. I apologize. Good thing is I can't read my own notes. That's all you're going to get. But well, no, you provide tremendous amount of information, but you also put 100 thoughts in my head of other questions. But in your earlier comments, Susan, if I may, you talked about people being underprepared, and I was sitting there thinking 4, 5, 6 years ago when I was at appropriations hearing, I had asked, I think it was the then presidents of our 4 state relateds, why is it seems that fundamentally it's taking 5 years plus to get a 4-year degree? And consistently, all of them, or all that chose to answer, said, we get too many students coming to us unprepared. Well, I hear you say underprepared. So the question begs to ask, considering that the second largest part of our state budget is K through 12, are we investing properly there? Are they now having the same flexibility as you are and thinking about, geez, we need to focus a little bit more on STEM? Where are their career paths? Because if I listened to the earlier testimonies, a lot of these kids' paths are getting set in their early teens and what they're going to do and their work skills and their dedication or devotion, or whether they're going to be good employees, dedicated, show up on time. That is a large question, but I think it's all interrelated. And from policymakers' perspective, we want to know, are we getting good return on our dollars? Is there something we need to be encouraging so we don't have another hearing where people are saying, well, you guys spend 40% of your budget on K through 12, but they're still coming to us unprepared or ill-prepared?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And yes, we do, all of us get underprepared students. I think probably at a community college, because of our open access, we have a larger proportion. One of the things that we're doing that I'm sure my colleagues are doing as well is trying to move down into the high school and middle school level and work with teachers to align the kinds of, especially math and science, that those students would need to come into a higher education environment. So I do think some of that alignment will help. We don't think at a community college that we will ever be able to, it's astounding. Probably 40% of our students come in needing some developmental work, typically in writing, reading, and math, possibly all 3. But, and that's not a knock on our K through 12 system. I think there are many demands on those teachers and the students, but we think with a better alignment of not just, for example, we have students, I'm sure all of us do, who come and homework in high school satisfied getting a decent grade. There wasn't as much rigor to the material. So we really think that probably working together, hopefully, again, the optimism, we can try to impact on some of that so that students will be better prepared. And I think we would all agree on the panel, and I hope you do too, that we are preparing all students for career and college. Hopefully it's and, but could be or, but lifelong learning in the environment we're in now and moving further into will require people to have training and education all through their lives. And yes, people will be changing careers 4 to 7 times, and that's probably careers. That's not just jobs. There's jobs in the careers too that they're changing.
Let me give you 2 points of entry, Representative. The first is that in the 1970s, only 25% of high school graduates went on to college. And now it's 75% of high school graduates go on to some form of higher education. And so that same 25%, if you will, are still going to certain kinds of colleges that tend to be judged by the size of their endowments and winning football well, I can't say that, winning football teams, but I forget where I am sometimes. I'm from New Jersey originally, but so anyway, don't hold that against me. So that same 25% are still going to where their parents went and their grandparents went. The opportunity for us, the mission and the value and the vocation, if you will, is for the next 25 and 25%, meeting them where they are and then moving them forward. And so when someone says to me, Yale has a 97% retention rate for their first-year students, I say, what are you doing wrong that you're losing 3%? Right? Because they're prepared, in a certain for what you want. And so we actually delight, and I'm sure, actually, we're probably unanimous in this. We delight in the SCOGs, the special children of God, we call them, the underprepared ones, because we can see them go from here to there. They're not just starting here and going a little bit and succeeding. They're starting here, and we're really catching them where they are and then catching them up and then sending them forth. There was an op-ed recently by the president of Wilkes University, Pat Leahy is his name, and he talked a bit about this. It was an excellent way to talk about how do we judge or measure the finish, from where we started. And it's not a value judgment on the people or the students. They are where they are. They start where they start. And so we can't be door closers and saying, nope, you don't have this, this, and this. We're about opening our doors and saying we want to help you get to the next place. Would you agree with that, Tom? Especially, I know your place is like that,
I
too.
would agree with the recent study by the Council of Independent Colleges. The median time to finishing a degree in independent higher ed is 4.1 years. And we're doing that because some students are taking a little bit longer, but we also have a growing number of students who are taking a little bit less time. At Misericordia, the great majority of the students in our physical therapy program are finishing everything they need for an undergraduate degree in 3.5 years. And one of the unseen joys of online education is that students now can work 3 jobs in the summer and at 2 a.m. take the class that they need to get to the sophomore year or the junior year. And that's becoming a far more prevalent model that's getting students' way to finance, keep going to school, keep moving along, and finish their degree in 4 years. We're really proud of that because that 5th year is another year of debt added on, and it's one less year of income and paying taxes. So we're constantly working to make sure that our students get out in 4 years or less.
Well, the good news is you answered my last question with that question, because I was curious if we're ever going to see any adaptation of the rigidity of a 4-year degree, and I think you're answering that you're becoming very, very flexible, and I think that's very, very encouraging to see. We could go on all night, but I want to be respectful of your time. I want to thank you for your endurance, and as Karen said, we apologize some of our members couldn't stay, but some of our guys that were here were already at 2 other hearings and needed to get back to their districts for something. But we will share your testimony. Members not even on the policy have the access to that, and if there's something that you thought of when driving down the road and you want to share with us, let us know, because I always tell my staff, if you're king for a day, what would you do? So if something pops in your mind, we are really dependent on your testimony and see that as a great asset. So thank you for what you do at Commonwealth. Dr. Jones, again, thank you for being a gracious host today, and thanks to our great AV crew that are providing this information. Have a great day. This meeting is adjourned.